Archbishop Perez, it's so wonderful to be here with you on the Feast of St. Charles Borromeo here in St. Martin's Chapel at the seminary, where you just celebrated Mass a few minutes ago.
Yeah, this morning we had Mass. We had the celebration of candidacy, where men formally declared and the Church accepted them as candidates for holy order. So it was beautiful.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It was beautiful.
Praise
and
God.
moving, and it's always a special day here at St. Charles. I did it here in this chapel myself. I was ordained a priest of Philadelphia.
Oh.
So I've sat in these very pews during my time in seminary formation. And so it's still surreal to walk into this very chapel now as the Archbishop of Philadelphia.
I think it's
Never thought it was
fantastic.
gonna happen.
The Holy Spirit is wondrous in its ways.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about how being Latino informs you being an archbishop? It's a unique thing nowadays.
It is unique. There's only three of us, Archbishop Gomez in Los Angeles, Bishop Gustavo Garcia Sier in San Antonio, and now me. It's very humbling, number one. It's very humbling for me to be one of three. I think it is the Holy Father's understanding also of the presence of Hispanics and Latinos in the United States. We know from the Fifth Encuentro that 61% of Catholics in the United States at this time, 18 and under, come from a Hispanic background, from 20-something different countries that inform that word, right? So you do the math.
That's exactly right.
Right? You do the math. So to me, it's a great source of joy. I don't see myself, Montse, as a Hispanic bishop or a Latino bishop in that sense, because to me, in that sense, that doesn't really exist. I'm a Catholic bishop who happens to be
That's right.
Cuban background. I was born in the United States, but my parents came from Cuba.
Tell us a little bit about them.
My parents have, like the story of many Cuban refugees. So when I hear about immigrants and refugees, it resonates in my heart. My father, at the age of 25, managed some 20-something banks in Cuba. He was a banker.
Wow.
And my mother and my father and my older brother, God rest his soul, came here in 1960, and I was in my mother's womb. So I already existed,
That's
right?
right.
From natural birth to natural death, Nelson already existed.
Yes.
Right? He just hadn't shown up yet. But he was on the plane.
Yes.
I was in Cuba,
Yeah.
right? And but they left that day. They left their house and the place where they lived, where you and I left the places where we lived, never to go back, with a hope that somehow things would change, and they didn't. And they didn't. My father, who was a banking executive, his first job in Miami was selling Domino sugar door to door.
Door to door.
Door to door. And then he moved, New York is the banking capital of the world. So he moved himself and us, I had already been born, to the New York metropolitan area, where he got his first banking job as a teller. Now, this is a guy that managed a bunch of banks, now
Right.
have to work as a teller, and had to go learn English. And with his broken English, over time, he retired as a senior executive vice president of a bank in New York.
Wow.
He
From the bottom up.
started as a teller, right? So I admire that a lot. And my mom, the woman of great faith. So I got from my dad, I got the practicality of addressing issues.
Right.
And his steadfast faith. From my mom, I got her spirituality, and she taught me the desire to do God's will in all things, which is not easier said than done.
Right, and to trust
So in a lot
Him.
of ways, they were great teachers to me without even knowing that they were teachers in that way.
Knowing this story and how it informs your spirituality, do you think that our church today is underinvesting in the Hispanic community?
I think it still has to wake up a little bit, right? I still think, I think a lot has been done, right? I think the Fifth Encuentro was for the church in the United States and the people of the United States, a wake-up call in a lot of ways, and the bishops have been wonderful in the support of that. It's a fifth encuentro because there were 4 others.
Right, and it's this coming together to address.
To listen to the voice of the Spirit. You know, the Holy Father has called us to a spirit of synodality. Well, that was, in a sense, a synod without being called that.
Right.
But it was bringing people into dialogue, which is such a favorite word of the Holy Father that he's now called us all to, right? To walk and dialogue together and see where the Spirit is guiding us. And the fruits of the fifth encuentro are still yet unfolding.
Right.
Right? But yes, I think we've still got some ways to go, but we've also come a long way as well. In many ways, where I sit right now and what I do right now is a testament to the church recognizing that.
It's proof of that.
And I say that with all modesty because that has nothing to do with Nelson Perez. It has to do with the fact that the church has listened to the voice of the Hispanic people. And so while I don't see myself as a Hispanic bishop, but as a Catholic bishop, I also know that I'm a Cuban American too.
That's right.
At the same time, right? And I understand the significance of that.
There's something beautiful when we walked into this wonderful chapel. You have the altar from El Día de los Muertos.
Right.
All Saints, All Souls, right?
Dios en noviembre, yeah.
That's right, where the Mexican American community or just Mexican community celebrates and prays for their dead. How do you deal with that diversity? A lot of people think the Latino Hispanic community is homogeneous, but it's really diverse, as you mentioned, 27 countries.
It's actually very rich, you know. I'm sure your mom and dad and your family won't say that they're Hispanic, they say they're Mexican.
We're Mexican, yes.
My mom would say,
Guadalupanos.
right? My mom would say, well, they're Cuban.
Yeah.
Right? In the same way that people who speak English don't say that they're Anglos, they say they're Irish, Scottish, British, or Australian, right? So there's a beautiful diversity and richness to it. And at the same time, you'll find in the Hispanic, Latino world that the Mexican wants to be a Mexican, and the Cuban wants to be a Cuban, and the Puerto Rican wants to be Puerto Rican, and each bring a richness that's united by language and actually faith and spirituality.
That's
that
beautiful.
we wear on our sleeves.
We do, but it informs who we are and our identity as Catholics.
It informs who we are and how we live.
That's right. Archbishop, you were part of the response to the social unrest and all of the different race issues that happened in the last 2 years. How did you address that, and why did you think that that was so important?
There was a lot of social unrest here in Philadelphia. We were one of those places where thousands and thousands of people walked in peaceful protest, right? Because the hurt of racism is underneath the skin. All you need to do is hit it, right? I walked on a Sunday afternoon with about 150 young adults praying the rosaries through the streets of Philadelphia. But then it all went away, right? But the hurt of the sin and evil of racism did not.
That's right.
And so I met with our Black Catholic community. From there came the notion, the idea, the movement of the Spirit to establish the Archbishop's Commission on Racial Healing and Dialogue. And so they began their work. But it's about racial healing and dialogue. And it represents people from the suburbs, the city, and different races as we all come together to talk to each other. Because that's where healing actually does happen, when we hear each other's stories.
And why is the church such a unique place and the right place to have these discussions?
Jesus was a healer. Jesus was a healer. It was a big part of his ministry. And the church humbly holds the place of being the sacrament of Christ in the world. So the church has to be a healer.
You've been so instrumental in helping me think through these issues, and I hope that our viewers will share in thanking you for what you've done for us.
Thank you, Montse. Always a pleasure. You're the best.
It's always a pleasure to be with you. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
In preparation for the upcoming Fall General Assembly, I also asked Archbishop Perez about his thoughts on the USCCB's Eucharistic Coherence teaching document that focuses on worthiness to receive Holy Communion. A document some say weaponized the Eucharist to put pressure on bishops to deny communion to pro-abortion Catholic politicians.
We have this document that's coming out of the USCCB that's also causing great division, with some people who want a very pastoral approach to Eucharistic cohesion, to that understanding of who we are as Catholics and how we bring that into the public square, and some who want a political approach, where they want people to be publicly censored or censured for the way that they advocate for abortion or undermine church teaching publicly. What can you tell us about how we should think about
My
that?
hope for that document, as well as the Eucharistic revival, is that we all, as Catholics, deepen our love for the Eucharist. Because if we do that, then the Lord will take care of the rest. That we deepen our love for the Eucharist and then put our hearts where they need to be. And that means defending life, it means defending the poor, it means defending the immigrant, it means walking with those in need, it means a lot of things, right? But I pray that what we do and how we do it will bring us together to deepen our love for the power, the transformative power of Christ in the Eucharist that has transcended time.